37 minutes past 7 a.m. We do continue with Friday's edition of Morning at NTV. My name is Priscilla Regina Naloga, and thank you so much for being with us. Of course, you can follow up on the conversations. Do also contribute. And in case you do have a question, it's most welcome. Hashtag Morning at NTV on Twitter. But you can stream with us as we have this interesting conversation that affects our social lives on YouTube as well as Facebook. Just type in NTV Uganda and you'll be good to go. Joining us in understanding the Uganda Musicians Association's role in the music industry before COVID-19, during COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, and what the future of this industry is with or without an association, because I've heard from a little bird saying that they may not actually need an association after all. Anyway, that little bird happens to be Andrew Kago, who is an artist journalist with Daily Monitor. Good morning to you, Andrew.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, joining us also for this very same conversation is Charles Kabogoza, who is an artist manager, events manager, and he also is the man behind Q Vibes Entertainment. I'm pretty sure you had an effect of his entertainment company when we were having the dance parties on NTV. Wow. He was the man supplying us with some of that cool tech, you know, things like that. But he has also plied his trade in the film industry. He's acted in Deception as Chris. Good morning to you, Chris.
Good morning, Priscilla. What an introduction.
How are you?
Priscilla, I'm good. I feel so happy to be back home. I'm glad to see my main man, Andrew. We've been through the trenches together. And lovely to be with you. All
right, it's nice to have you here. Now, first question, of course, is do you guys have the invitation to the biggest party in town this weekend?
Oh, it is. I don't need an invitation because Q Vibes is doing the show.
All right, okay. Clearly, we are sorted, so we shall go with the big man. Okay, so Ugandan artists are currently being lobbied by supporters of King Saha and also Cindy Sanyu, aka the Queen, the King herself, and they want to be leaders of the Uganda Musicians Association. This is an association that was started in 2017, and over the stretch of 5 years, they have gone through different tides. One of them is the fact that the initial leadership team threw in the towel shortly after being elected, and then there was a second team that took on with Isaac Ruchi, who also threw in the towel. And Andrew is going to help us understand why those transitions have been so enormous over the last 5 years. So let's start with understanding how this association came up, and then why did people throw in the towel as it was growing?
It's a very funny story, and I remember I was discussing it with the writer. So it's 2017, two Nigerian artists come to Uganda. That was Mr. Easy and Techno Mayus. There were two artists that were trying to find their footing even in Nigeria. And you couldn't even say they had a footing in East Africa at the moment. And then they come to Uganda, they get a full house at Lugogo Cricket Oval, and guess what? They are put on stage and literally none of them can last 45 minutes. Wow. Because they didn't really have the music to take them that long. I remember, I think Mr. Easy started by giving us his DJ Nach Kubamwao, then he comes and does his few songs, and then he notices he still has time, and probably at that time he's wondering, okay, what do I do with this time? And it was the same thing with techno. So very many Ugandan artists were rubbed the wrong way by that. So I think the very first person that commented about it online, I don't know if even that post is still up, was Cindy. She said something about these people bringing artists that are not yet ready to come and entertain Uganda, yet they could be investing
They're just one-hit wonders with 5 songs, of course, which cannot run the 45 minutes.
So she complained about that. But yet
they were being paid a lot of money.
A lot of money.
Given everything free. Basically, everything was taken care of.
Yes. So apparently, two artists who were King Saha and Jose Chameleon at that time came together like they even woke up very early in the morning. Like artists rarely wake up very early in the morning, and they came to this place, to Serena, to see a presenter on Spark TV. That happens to be Kasuku, and at that time they were talking about this thing of how Ugandan media is playing a lot of Nigerians and then making them famous here. They felt like their work was threatened. So initially when this whole thing came together, it was to save Ugandan music.
Hence the campaign that we had about Save Ugandan Music.
Yes, okay. Save Ugandan Music. But when, you know, when artists come together and everyone is given a chance to talk, before you know, someone throws in some word and the conversation changes. So someone somewhere told them, but wait, we even have an issue of copyright, and before you knew, people jumped on to the whole copyright thing, and they rode with it, and yeah, before you knew, they had forgotten that they had this cause. So when they went on to the copyright thing, that's how they had some meeting somewhere. I think it was, there was a meeting where I think radio almost beat up AT NTV. And yeah, before you knew, now they were riding on the copyright, and so far I think they managed to chase UPRS out to get a new UPRS in. And yeah, technically that's how UMA came into existence, like from I think that meeting where radio almost beat up Sandy.
Okay, all right. So you did have Julius Chaza taking on leadership.
Yes,
then.
he was the very, very first president of UMA, and then I think when he was president, one of the very first things that UMA did was to try to get a radio presenter fired.
Because?
Because they thought they did not like the way that radio presenter was critiquing them.
But then I thought it's supposed to be focusing on musicians, not media personalities.
Of course, that's how you start seeing that this, the leadership was there trying to make people do right. But of course, if your members are pushing one cause, it becomes so hard for you to fight them. And personally, I believe that could have been one of the reasons he decided to pull out.
So in the initial subscription of UMA, how many members were subscribed to this?
Like at the moment?
No, in 2017, when we had the initial...
That's very confusing. I don't even know if they directly subscribed to it. Because you know how people come for a meeting.
Bandwagon of, you know what? Because
yeah, how people come for a meeting.
They trust what is going on.
Yeah, I feel it was like that because they've embarked on actual registrations well late after that.
Okay, all right. So now with the registration, how do people, especially who are the direct members, and how do they get to be involved with this association? One,
you register, but you see, we need to first understand the fact that before UMA, there was, Uganda Performing Rights, something that, Uganda Performers, something that Chibuka led.
Yes.
So right now, I don't even know if it still exists or it became null and void.
Existing is one thing, implementing and influencing is a totally different conversation altogether.
Yeah, so one, we've been forming associations every time something happens. When artists were dying in 2015, okay, like I can't say artists were dying, but famous people were dying. It's like it was the first time where Ugandans were seeing many famous people die, like Harriet Chisache dies, AK-47 dies, and they were like, oh, Ugandans, many artists are dying, and many of them are dying broke. So they kind of came together and tried to form an association, like to do some sort of a circle to help themselves. When there were new laws, I think by UCC sometime, there were not even new laws, they were talking about bringing new laws. They sat together and formed an association. So they keep forming things most of the times whenever something comes up. So this was formed and it somehow stayed.
Okay.
And I highly doubt they even know what it's supposed to do.
All right, that's Andrew Kagwa giving us the background of the Uganda Musicians Association that was offset in 2017. 5 years later, we do have elections coming up next month in which you do have King Saha versus Cindy Sanyu for presidency. But before we get into that conversation, of course, we want to also understand it from the promoter's end, because where there's an artist, there's someone who's got to promote their talent. There's someone who's supposed to to expose their talent. And this is where, Charles, you come in as an exposer of talent, or an enhancer, builder, promoter, manager of talent. How many years of experience do you have in promotion and talent management?
I got involved into this industry way back in 2011 as a young man, fresh from varsity, and I got engaged in this as a music producer. And that's when I started looking at how much untapped potential that this industry holds. That was in 2011 as a music producer. One very painful thing. And
for just before 2011, who did you produce?
I have a lot of products on Q Vibes. If you see the Q Vibes logo on so many brands, Rema to say, Irene Namubiru, which brought us that award, the international award. You know, I can't go back into that. They so, but the brand, I'm sure our viewers have been seeing it on people's videos and music videos. And now it is a field that is neglected, yet has so much potential. You see, we need to take a difference between Uganda and Nigeria. The implementers of policies in Nigeria embraced this business and they took it on personally. There was a deliberate effort to promote and create art. There was a budget for the arts industry. There were concessions, trade concessions and what. And the artist was given room to be as creative as creativity can entail. That goes right in the musician's world and the acting world. And before we realized it, art broke borders. Bollywood, Nollywood is everywhere. Nigerian.
It's on Netflix now.
Yes, it's even on Netflix. Come to Uganda, it's a laughing stock. We are coming on these funny associations. They're actually white elephants. They are annoying, and nobody gives a damn about the artist. Nobody cares about the artist.
So are you trying to say that with this musicians association, so far the care to the artist has not yet been visualized?
If government, if whoever these funny millions of MPs that we have, if they cared to take
they're only
an
256,
interest,
but who's counting?
they're so funny. Sometimes I call them noisemakers because the things that move the country forward are the things that I ignored the most. If art is taken into perspective, if they listen to the musicians cry in these associations, there are so many associations that I subscribe to. We were sinking in the 2 years of the lockdown. And these policymakers were growing fat and fatter and fatter on things that are useless. If only they can take and pinch, and policy is taken deliberate into the arts world, then all these funny associations will begin to make sense.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. Now, Andrew, back to you. Of course, you're looking at an industry that needs a lot of skilling. You, especially COVID-19, so many upcoming artists. Everyone could do a beat and sing on it. But then again, skilling them and streamlining them to actually be the artist that is worth of promotion and management. You've talked about registration. I don't know how that looks like in this organization. But there's also legislation, things that control and make sure that these products and these artists are actually putting out quality stuff, consumable stuff, not just even on Ugandan market, but across the bar, regional markets, international markets. Let's talk about the fair share of returns. Are these included in the Uganda UMA Association? Let's talk about the intellectual property also. Also, all these things, can you just pinpoint to us in the 5 years, has any of this been addressed?
At least if I see things that UMA has been trying to address, very few times have I seen them working for the artists. Actually, not just UMA, even if I'm to look at all the associations that have been coming up. I don't know if you know that there is an association for promoters. Yeah. And someone tried to form an association for upcoming artists. Like, Like how do you form an association? Like you're not even going to be sure you're going to be an upcoming forever, and how do you determine who's one? So we keep forming these things, and very few times are they talking about the artist or what actually matters to the artist. I think what we needed was initially a lobby group. I don't think we actually needed an association. Okay. I don't think we need an association, because how are you going to register people? Like, how do you define what is art? How do you define who is a musician? Like, I think when I was in high school, there was a famous artist, a US artist, T-Pain. I think what T-Pain was doing in the 80s wouldn't have been considered music, but then he came and did it. I think when rappers started out, there was a people that thought what they were doing was not music, but then it became music. So how do you even determine who is an artist? So you don't even need an association. You actually need things, policies that are going to work for these people, because art evolves all the time. And when it evolves, even the way it's governed, the intellectual property is always changing. Evolution. Like, I could be here talking and someone cuts what I'm saying and they put it in a song, and somehow it works.
For example, Tuliwawelu.
Yeah, for example, Tuliwawelu. And like, so art is always evolving. Like, when you're thinking about it, you shouldn't be thinking into boxing it into things like associations, because this is something that always grows, it evolves a lot.
Okay. All right, let's talk about the copyright discussion. I know it's a conversation artists like Eddie Kenzo have tried to table over and over again. That's right. So the property conversation also on these products that are put out there. I will start with you. What's your take on how far this conversation has gone in terms of actualization?
Well, thank you. One, the copyright law, it would make sense if Ugandans had a buying appetite for Ugandan art. That appetite is not there. And you see, I would agree with artists like the Kenzos, because it is so expensive to create art. I have been through those tunnels and jungles. You know, you find a music video costing approximately $15,000 to $20,000. The artist has to buy themselves a ticket. You buy a crew ticket. You need to go to Dubai, South Africa, to shoot the kind of video that can compete. You understand? And this is an artist. Return on investment can only be in shows. Can only be, you know, MTN tried to do something that can give back to the artist through those color tunes and stuff. But it's
consumability is still low.
It is so low. And it drives me back into the policymaker. Art can sell bigger than oil. Art can sell bigger than diamond, the gold that we're digging.
Well, we're definitely seeing it in sports. Every time the Nzukurus, every time the Cheptegeis come back, there's a cut that is of the money that they bag that goes into, you know, our national treasury. So it definitely can earn the country some extra back.
It is something not complicated at all. All they need to do is to think a little and be a little bit sensible.
Okay, Andrew has a contribution to that.
Yes. I think what's happening in the country at the moment, one, with the copyright, for instance, one, it's not understood well by the artists, and then it's not understood by the government. So you have two parties that actually do not understand this thing. One, the government has failed. We have one of the best copyright laws in the world. It's one of the best, and they failed to implement it. One, because the implementation has not only failed in music, it has failed even with film. Like, I do not know how many times because I call out people a lot on social media. I don't know how many times I've called out UCC when I see a local TV probably showing a pirated film. And you're thinking, like, guys, there is a TV somewhere showing a pirated film. When they show that film, a Ugandan filmmaker is losing opportunity because these people are showing a film that's from out and they are getting it for free.
And the response from UCC is?
And they will usually tell you, you write them an email. I've written them emails where I've even copied all these TVs, like you even take screen grabs, and you don't really get a lot of response. So we've failed on the implementation of how to collect the royalties. One, if TVs are not enough to get royalties from, you tap onto the hotels because they're using people's music. They're using people's intellectual property. When you get into the lobby, you find some music playing and it will be Ugandan music most of the times. Then there are restaurants. Then there are buses that keep doing all these routes. There are taxis. All these people are keeping their clients entertained using Ugandan music, but none of them is probably paying anything that an artist can benefit from. Then there are these funds, because we have a problem of piracy that we cannot fight right now, and that's world over. No one can fight piracy, because everyone that has a phone, whether they like it or not, they will somehow be a pirate, whether they like it or not. And that's because I'll be on my phone, and before I know, someone sends me a voice note which is someone's song, and I will have been an accomplice to piracy without even deciding that I want to be a pirate. So, but how do you handle that? Like, why is it that telecom companies that are collecting a lot of money from data are not sending something to UPRS which can go back to the artists? Why is it that a phone, when it comes, because it has potential of carrying music, it's not paying a certain charge that's going to the artist? So, like, I see very many things that can actually be, because they are working elsewhere. Because I know Malawi has a very big blank tape. It's called a blank tape act. It's somewhere within the copyright law, where a flash disk is an empty CD, like everything that can carry music comes into the country. There's a percentage that actually goes back to UPRS. But then when it comes to the artists themselves, when I say that at times they don't even understand the law that much, there is a lot someone can do with their music besides performing it. And at times you need to push that, you need to go that extra mile, you need to push. If I have my song and I can probably lobby with NTV to use part of it as a jingle when they are starting news, I'll get some extra money without going out to perform that song. Sometimes I might not even release the song, they might just have it exclusively. So I feel like at times artists have not looked into the other ways of exploiting their intellectual property.
And these are things that conversations you would have desired be covered in such an association, I presume. Okay, so in today's scoop, the cover story is full there. 5 years on, has Uma lived to its expectations? And these two gentlemen disagree. They believe that Uma has not lived to its expectation. Then you wonder what the ones are standing for leadership and presidency want to do. But there is a quote here. Going forward, according to Chazeb, the association and its members need to appreciate that it serves not only musicians, but also other players who have a stake in the music business. Once this is understood, the leadership should be open to whoever is able, not just whoever has more music. So the understanding of the needs of the industry. Let's talk about who should be the recognized stakeholders in this conversation, and going forward, how should this organization be expected to operate? I'll start with you.
Number one, my credit goes out to the artist because they are the primary creators of art. If they create fake art, we have nothing to sell. I'll borrow from what my brother has been talking about, what the associations should do, how they should litigate. We don't need litigation. We need logistical support in the business. If we have...
And where do you see that logistical support coming from?
It comes, it's a deliberate effort from government. if we have a budget.
But then government is going to tell you, please form an association. No. It told the teachers, in order for them to get their COVID-19 money, form an association and get the money. It told the business entity, form an association, or through your association, come and lobby for money. So I suppose the birth of this association was to actually, again, something he pointed out, cause lobbying of business and interests and also support from entities like government.
Thank you. The reason why the Medical Association is very successful in whatever it does, it's because there was a deliberate effort to create a Ministry of Health. And through the Ministry of Health, a government allocates resources from taxpayers.
So are you trying to say we need a Ministry of Arts and Entertainment?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, a Ministry of Art and Culture exists world over. They do exist, art and culture.
Yes.
Because, I mean, culture is the way of life.
Yes.
And at the moment, culture is literally a #1 employer. Even in Uganda, where it's ignored, it's a #1 employee. Okay, I can't say it's #1. They might disagree, but it employs a lot of young people. And some of these people did not even need to go to school to start earning from art.
Okay. All right, please continue.
Yes, then that's just one example. The reason why the Law Society is successful in whatever they try to implement and put on table simply because there's a deliberate effort and a budget for the legal system. And if this is taken into account as far as Uganda is concerned, then we have a solid ground upon which we can stand to push whatever agenda we are trying to.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Please.
Basically, that's my point. It starts from the top, then it gets back to the artists. We may make as many beautiful associations, but if they are void of substance, if we do not have a foundation upon which we stand and start putting our points across and our pains and our challenges and retributions, I'm telling you, we shall form millions of them and come up with so many laws that are null and void and that are useless, you know. That is my submission.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. Andrew, turning to you, of course, putting aside the 5 years, you're looking at an association that is here maybe to stay a little bit longer. One of the reasons or the best lines for its creation is the fact that Ugandan music was not receiving as much airplay in the different businesses, radios, TVs, and so on and so forth. So they came together to push for that. And so I believe they have achieved that because, you know, with UCC, there's now an entire law that requires you to play 70% or a certain percentage of Ugandan music per hour. Meanwhile, you know, especially for entertainment industry. Now that brings into the conversation of that was the initial purpose. But now there are other things, there are untapped potentials that this very association can actually get into, discuss, and then implement. What are some of those untapped potentials that should be addressed in the next regime?
One, it's true UCC keeps talking about the 70% thing. I could actually tell you they just keep talking about it.
I know, I have experienced it. So somewhere we do apply it, actually.
They talk about it and they implement it where it works for them. I know I'm on a station that keeps getting many letters from UCC. So probably this is one of the places where they want it to work, like they can react when it's not working. But I mean, it's not working when it comes to the TVs that are run by the government, because I've complained about those TVs with them, like, hey, come on, your TV is actually showing a film that came out last year, and as far as I know, that film belongs to Netflix, not them. Why are they showing it? And they don't react. So one of the things I think the association needs to tap into now that they are there, because now that they are there, we cannot really stop them. They do exist, much as they shouldn't. Now that
you can't fight them, join them.
Now that they're there, some of the things they need to work on is, one, we need policies that work for the industry. And when it comes to policies...
Policies in which particular areas?
I think a lot when it comes to exhibition. Exhibition, that's what people are playing on TV, what people are playing on radio. Some of these things should be very deliberate. I do not see why we should have an event, say, if you remember that KCCA Carnival. I don't see why we should have something like a KCCA Carnival, which I want to believe is using partly taxpayers' money, and they're probably bringing their headliners Diamond Platinums. Like, that doesn't make a lot of sense. We should be very deliberate when we are forcing the whole buy Uganda, build Uganda. We should be very deliberate about that. We should be deliberate on how people are playing local music. People will tell you they are playing 70% local music, but they are going to play local music in the wee hours when everyone is asleep. And then when they get into their peak hours, they will pick out their international music and they will be playing that. So we should be very deliberate about the policies. We should be deliberate more about how people are getting paid onto the industry. Like, we should be deliberate about some things, I believe. Even when it comes to concert, again, it's something I saw in Malawi. In Malawi, they will not...
You went for that October concert?
I've been to Malawi for, I think, twice. Okay. And all the same, there is that Lake of Stars, which happens via, I think it's Lake Malawi, which happens on Lake Malawi. I've gone for that twice. You see, in Malawi, they do not...
As you continue, I actually know a Malawian here in Uganda who went back for that concert in COVID-19. So it's that serious.
Yeah. So you see, in Malawi, they will not let an international artist stay on stage for more than 45 minutes. Because they believe the more he stays on that stage, a local artist is losing opportunity. Wow. So what most of the times these people do, when they have an artist that's going to perform for 2 hours, they'll bring the artist, and then when it's 45 minutes, that artist will do some sort of a duet or a jamming with a local artist. Because trust me, that artist jamming with a local artist will not leave this local artist the same.
Yeah, we should have had Levixon in this conversation because he went for the last one. So it would have been nice to hear his side of the story to this one.
Like, he will pick a lot of skill, he will pick a lot of, probably they might end up doing a real collabo from there. And then it will be a highlight for this person who is on stage with this person. So I think we need more deliberate policies like that. At the moment, I feel like people are just trying to get positions for themselves and
titles.
And if you ask me, like, are these two people even right to lead the association? No, I'm not talking about their capabilities.
Now that you've asked yourself, please answer yourself.
I'm not talking about their capabilities, but trust me, art is a very emotional kind of work. We wake up, if we wake up one day and King Saha is the president and say, King Saha wants to do a show. Now he wants to do a show as King Saha, not the president of UMA. He wants to do a show, and probably Chameleon also wants to do a show on the same date. That might separate them, and it might alter King Saha's decision making, because one, he's still an artist who is competing, but then he's also president. So should artists be leading themselves when they are still competing with each other?
That's a good one. Okay, so it has actually brought into picture the question that I've been also wanting to discuss. This whole rivalry in the arts industry is killing the arts industry. Wouldn't you agree?
Well, it is business.
Oh, the rivalry is part of the business.
It is part of the business. And sometimes we have to appreciate. And
as a promoter, do you promote this rivalry?
No, sometimes it's created by the fans as well. And we need to create traffic around the artist.
Wow.
And
release some new pictures.
No, that is overboard. And sometimes this frictious rivalry gets the fans talking, gets the debate going, and it would be a boring thing. It's like
Charles, isn't that because they're not able to remunerate from their art just by being artists?
You see, in Uganda we say that when Uganda twagala nye byononese. I'm telling you. Sometimes scandal You know, sometimes we have to ride on scandal.
I think it's scandal that has helped people rise to fame, and it's a shame because that is not art. Scandal is not art. Andrew, what is your take on this?
No, okay, you see, one of the things you cannot take out of business is rivalry.
Yeah.
Because trust me, NTV is competing with someone.
Yes.
NMG as a whole are competing with someone, so people will compete, and at times it gets bloody, like they say things about each other when they are competing, so you cannot really take that rivalry out of business.
Yeah, but
and for this being
but it shouldn't be the definition of what you're doing.
Yes, it
otherwise
shouldn't
it
be.
would negate the fact that we have visions and missions for these different entities.
I think the problem I get with Uganda Times is when the rivalry is kind of overshadowing what people are doing.
Yeah.
But I can tell you that I've seen very many industries that have used rivalry to, like where artists have actually used rivalry to better their careers. Like I'll be fighting with you when you're an artist, and the moment you release a good song, I'll try to shut that song down by releasing a better song.
Okay.
And it stimulates emotions. It actually pumps up the blood. It warms up the blood and the vibe. Eh?
Yeah.
It gives vibe. You know, it would be so boring.
It gives Q vibes.
Oh yeah, those are real Q vibes, quality vibes. You know, it would be so boring if Irene is all the time hugging with Juliana. Come on. It is so boring.
Wow.
And you know, behind closed doors, Bebe Cool and Bobby Wine are actually great friends. They are so emotional with each other, but in the public eye, we need that vibe. So don't take us by the script. Sometimes it's for the business. Yeah, and yes. That's right.
Well, when a promoter says it, you cannot stop it. Okay, now that you've spoken about the two, you've made mention of Bobby Wine as an artist. His art has been chopped. And what are your sentiments about that, and how can it be resolved? I'll start with you.
Well, wait, why are you starting with me? but you see, you know, Bobby Wine gets into Parliament in 2017. I think it was around July. At that time, Uma was in its formative stages, and I think it was formed later that year. And Bobby Wine's performances get choked. I think in his last performance was on New Year's 2018 getting into 2019. Bobby Wine has not been lucky to perform after that. And Uma was
Uganda,
yes, in Uganda.
In Kenya,
yes, in Uganda, and Uma was existing. So, like when you look at Bobby Wine being choked, and Uma is existing, and we've not even had a statement from them. Like that puts the whole association and what it does into question. And even when artists were not performing for a very long time during COVID, did we get an official letter from Uma maybe lobbying to open the industry? Like we didn't. So like it already puts the whole association into question. Like, okay, what are these people trying to serve? Who are they trying to serve? Yeah, but anyway, how that gets resolved, I think the powers that we need to understand, art is the way of life. People will always create, and people create with their emotions, and they say what they see. I read somewhere that in kingdoms that existed before this modernity, kingdoms used to have poets, and poets were the eyes of the public.
The kings and the public.
So a poet would come before the king, and he would say things that he had people say. Of course, some that were annoyed with what the poet has said would request for the poet's head. But that doesn't really change the fact that people actually say those things or are thinking about you like that. So what you have to do is to actually look into those things, because killing this poet is not going to take away poets, another poet will come up and they will say the same things. So I think for now, how we resolve that is understanding that art is not always going to be good to you. It's going to speak what it has to speak. Like Bobby Wine might not perform, and then someone will show up and say what Bobby Wine would have said.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll disagree a little bit. Art evokes forces that are extremely trivial, and they cut across all facts of our being. Art, the moment Bobby Wine chose to step into the political space, he brought the wrongest weapon in the political circles. Music became a weapon. Now there are security things to be thought about. Now it is not because he stopped because he's not loved. By the way, I'm not even a subscriber of any of these political organizations. I'm apolitical. But to me, until this day, it is the wrongest decision as an artist to step into a political space. One, you need to look at the logistics of having Bobby Wine on stage, as people are going to die. That man is loved desperately. But to the extent at which he's loved, that's the extent at which he's hated. You know? He will be assassinated. And this blame goes back on government. People will use him as a weapon to front so many stupid politicians. Have so many stupid agendas, and we don't need an artist in that space. We need an artist. We don't want to create
another Bob Marley.
Yeah, we don't need another Bob Marley. Yes. We've had enough. I need Bobby alive.
Another Lucky Dube.
I actually miss his poetry. I am so bored when I see these funny political speeches coming out of him. This decision has affected us. Let me tell you, Priscilla, we were making money way back. We were making money off that guy. That man has made us broke.
The man has made you broke.
He's made us broke. Taking music into a political space, turning music into a weapon.
Has made others targets, actually.
Yeah, thank you. And we have to love them or hate them. They have to gag him for the sake of stability. Sometimes it has to be, let's call a spade a spade, you know. So I would plead to whoever manages my big brother Bobby, come back to where you belong, come back to where you're loved the most, come back where no fingers are pointed at you. We need Bobby Wine, we don't need a Bob Marley. Thank you so much. All
right. Well, those are the words of Charles in there in reference to art and how it's it can be used as a weapon or a solution all at the same time. Now, in the capacity of artists still, as we're having the conversation on Uganda Musicians Association that has King Saha vying for presidency and also the king herself, Sanyu Cindy, also going in for presidency. We definitely have the other question that is in mind. The management of artists, how they're handled. What should a good management for an artist do in building the art and the brand of these people and these individuals and these crafts and these products? I'll start with you, Andrew.
Okay, it's so sad that we have very many artist managers that are just errand boys. But a manager is actually supposed to, you see, an artist is all about creating. They create art, they think about their next song and how they want it written. It's so hard for them to start thinking of how they are going to organize their next show. Some people will insist on trying to do that, but if they successfully do it, one party will suffer. Like you might go and the show had a very good turn up, they probably pulled it off, but for some reason you will notice that maybe the performance was hurt because they did not get a chance to rehearse as much because they were trying to run business. So a manager is supposed to look out for the business in this art They are supposed to look for those endorsements. They are supposed to recognize the endorsements. It would be nice for them to actually start looking out, which kind of artists do I have? How do I brand them better? Where do I go if I need business for such an artist? Who are the target audiences? The artists should be looking into those things.
Well, we have a manager with us here, Charles.
That's it.
Please let us know. First of all, distinctively give us the separation between a promoter and a manager, and then in your capacity, how you actually do this.
Yes. I'll use one of my artists as a guinea pig. I manage a young lady, Sandy. I have to package her right from the studio through the new platforms that we have, social media, and all this is a budget. I look at a young girl like Sandy. Sandy has a team of like 10 to 12 people. One is talking about the social media space of Sandy. One's talking about the arts creation bit. There's the music production part of it. There's the video production part of it. You see, before a song becomes what it is, logistically and realistically, you need to have a budget of approximately, I would say $20,000, because if I say it in Uganda shillings, it looks exorbitant.
In Ugandan shillings, because now there's an upcoming Sandy watching you right now, and she's saying, if you're speaking in dollars, you have really put me out of business.
I need around 70 to 100 million shillings to make sure I have a good video for Sandy, to make sure I have a good audio production for Sandy, to make sure I can book power play on enough radio stations, to make sure I can, there are so many bloggers and content pushers, and they are all paid. They are a business, to make sure that they are paid and whatever. And then I'll carry my artist. I'm sure
people are doing TikTok videos.
Those TikTok videos, and it's all these challenges have a cost implication. You see, my sweet Sandy will look at, Charles has been paid probably 4 million shillings for me to perform. And they forget about the roller coaster. And you don't blame her, because the end justifies the means. She's seeing the numbers, but she does not know where the fire comes from, what the furnace, the heat, the temperatures we have. So that brings it to my call. If our policymakers made it a deliberate effort to smoothen and soften the platforms on which we push our artists, then they'll be able to break borders. Then they'll be able to be signed up and getting these fat deals that don't know what we go through.
Okay, all right. So who are the current artists under your management?
I have Sandy, I have Little Boss, I have Carol, I have Shalom. The ones I've not mentioned, please forgive me. COVID brought in some bit of friction, and we had to reduce the numbers.
Okay. Yes. All right. Well, gentlemen, in your parting shots, Andrew, moving forward, the expectations, Uganda Musicians Association?
I think moving forward, now that it already exists, because I'm a strong believer that it shouldn't.
Okay.
Now that it already exists, they should work for the artists.
Right.
For the very first time, they should work for the artists.
Yeah. Work for the artists. Charles, your parting shot.
My parting shot, government, twagala sente. Make it a deliberate effort to support our business.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for having with me this conversation. Art is a voice, and yet it's a voice of one, but then again, it's a voice by many. Yeah. So please enjoy the art, support the art, but for those of you that are under the Uganda Musicians Association, let's put in the work to make sure that the art and culture in this country is built on a firm foundation. Good morning. It's been a wonderful conversation. Upcoming is our Kickstarter, the Public Relations Symposium, where we're going to be having Lorraine, the brand manager for MPL, talking to us about this with Chris. Again, you stay with us.